They know everything. They know every person. They know
basics. No.
Come on.
Just
Nobody ever claimed the rabbis are
just
God.
the basics.
You know, listen.
We know the sun doesn't go under the rakiach during the day. We are taking a deeper dive into episode 2 of our previous episode, talking more from the secular versus Orthodox community perspectives. And my name is Manny Yosipov, and I'm coming to discuss more of the secular side, reiterating a few of my points.
Daniel Rachnaev, just to clarify some things that may have been taken out of context, or maybe make some more points a little bit stronger as well.
Okay, so I will try to address and answer any question you have or comments that you have. My name is Yosef Mizrachi, and I speak about Judaism for almost 30 years worldwide. I wrote a few books. I have a successful website, large audience on social media. You know, I speak in different countries, different cities. And mainly, as you can see, I wrote a few books that proves that the Torah is 100% divine, the written and the oral Torah, and it made many, many thousands of people change their lifestyle because I use scientific proofs. And you know, basically it answers questions that many people have, even non-Jews. Baruch Hashem, over the years, I made over 1,000 non-Jews convert to Judaism, probably a lot more. And some of them were even priests in Christian churches that left Christianity and became Orthodox Jews. So I will try to address your questions, like I said.
My name is Jonathan Ben Shimol, just a bacher making some content to make the world a better place.
The organizer.
That's it.
I love it.
The Gevir.
It's a pleasure to have you guys. Rabbi Mizrachi, I'm very familiar with your work. I think you're talented and definitely successful in the Orthodox community. But recapping a little bit about why we're here, essentially Daniel and I spoke sort of quote unquote representing, for lack of a better word, the secular opinion that some people have. And I think that my stances really haven't changed much. I do believe that the Torah is a book of wisdom. It has a lot of good knowledge and good information, and it can be a guide for living, but with a grain of salt. I think that it can't be taken literally. I think that there's a lot of things that, if taken literally, would not yield an optimal or good life. I think that it has, been somewhat changed over time. It,
Tampered
needs, it needs some adjusting as we grow, as we develop. It needs refining, but it is overall, it has good pearls of wisdom, which is where I'm sure some of us disagree. So, that's really where my stance was. I previously, which I think is what caught your attention, was I was talking about how Shabbat, I don't believe that anyone who violates Shabbat should be killed or should be punished heavily as described in the Torah. I don't believe that gays should be stoned. I don't believe in a bunch of things that the Chamisha Chumshei Torah mentioned. So that's really where my stance kicked off, and I was a little bit lenient on marriage with Goya or not, and that's where I think a lot of people disagreed with me.
Well, just to clarify some of the stances that you had, we did see eye to eye upon, but there are also some things that we differ as well. I understand that there was two main disagreements or things that really caught your attention from the feedback that you got on the episode. Can you reiterate what those two were again?
Yeah, something about Shabbat, which he said,
and then the other one?
He said both of them.
Intermarriage.
Intermarriage.
Okay. So I think there was a bit of an misunderstanding from, we both said something that we're comfortable and open to the idea of marrying a non-Jew, even though at some point in the conversation with Manny, I kind of reverted and took a step back. I mentioned a convert is something that I would only be open to. In terms of it's no longer a non-Jew. It doesn't make it a non-Jew anymore. It's now someone that's Jewish. So I kind of had like a back and forth on that. But just to clarify, there's a beautiful thing that you're mentioning that you've brought a lot of people to Judaism. I'm aware that you have to get told no 3 times before you can get accepted into.
No, there's no such thing.
You have to get rejected a few times. No?
Yeah, no. If you have to see how sincere is the Gentile when it comes to convert. Sometimes it's because of personal interest, not for the sake of the truth. If you don't suspect them, meaning you see that they're very serious, you don't have to reject them. If you suspect that they're not 100% serious, maybe there's some politics behind their decision, that's when you reject them a few times to see how sincere they are. Because the idea is that Judaism is not a missionary religion, like Christianity and Islam and many cults who are always busy hunting more people to join their religion. In Judaism, it's the exact opposite. It's a privilege to become a Jew and join the chosen people. Therefore, we don't beg anyone to come join us. We're not running and giving out things on the street, threatening people that if they don't believe the Torah, they go to hell, like Christians do, or Muslims. If you don't convert to Islam, we'll chop your head off. That's not the style of Judaism. It's the exact opposite. You want to join the nation of God, the nation that is described in the Torah, you have to prove that you're worthy of it. And that's the concept in general, of course, with some details. That's how it works.
I also do want to know, you said that your opinion changed. And that's kind of the whole basis of the discussion. The Torah's opinion doesn't change. It's divine wisdom, and it's from the beginning of time till now. Hashem created this book to last throughout the whole history of the world. And you yourself, your opinion changed within a couple of days based on information that you heard.
In a couple of days,
throughout your life, it changed.
If you
right?
watched the entire episode, you would have, not just clips, as you mentioned before, you didn't really see the whole episode, you saw clips. So if you actually watched the whole episode, you would have saw that in the middle of the conversation, I was open about my internal confusion. So it's not really that I have an opinion, it's where I stand within myself.
That's not an opinion, so what is it?
It's how I see things in terms of how I want to carry things out.
That's an opinion.
An opinion is something that I want to
It's not a fact.
It's not a fact, but an opinion is something to share with somebody else. I have something to figure out within myself.
How you see things, that's your opinion.
No, but there's a reality of the truth, and I agree with that truth. However,
which is not your opinion.
It's a fact. Truth is fact.
Reality is an expression of God's will.
Okay, I agree. My thing is that where I am currently...
Your opinion is not God's will.
One second. Where I am currently and where I want to be are two different things. So currently...
No one's disagreeing to that.
Currently,
I wasn't going against you. I was saying that how your opinion changed, it just shows that not you, all of human race, we're just human beings. We're limited to our knowledge. We're constantly going to hear things. You go to a guy, how you feeling today? Great. Next day, okay. We're always changing our opinion.
I guess what he's trying to say is every person in the world has his opinions. In every topic, you have your personal opinion about it. Opinions, change with the years based on influence of things that you see and watch and listen to. People change their opinions, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with changing the opinion. Sometimes admitting you were wrong, sometimes you were right, and then you change your opinion to do something wrong.
Well,
it's
my
no
opinion
problem.
of being with a convert is still on the table. I would never retract
We're not
that.
challenging here your opinions. I just want to ask you one question to both of you, and this will give you something to think about. When you come to argue about the truth or validity of a book, right? We're now talking about the validity of the Torah. The Jewish Torah was given to the Jewish people in front of millions of witnesses approximately 3,300 years ago, and from then on it passed from generation to generation throughout the world. As you know a little bit about the history, this is basically the facts. Now, the question that I have to both of you is, how many times in your life you read the Torah from the beginning to the end to know literally the meaning of every verse in the Torah? Meaning, if I'm going to test you now on several verses in the Torah, just to give me the simple meaning of those verses in a first grade level. No Kabbalistic, no secrets, no Talmudic things, none of these things. Just like they teach in first grade in every Jewish yeshiva. If I will ask you to explain to me from the first word to the end of the Torah, 304,805 letters, will you be able to explain to me the literal meaning of every verse in the Torah? Meaning, are you to that level of first grade to be able to answer simple question? I promise it's not going to be something sophisticated. We're not talking here yeshiva stuff. Something that is first grade. Did you read the Torah from the beginning to the end, meaning you know about the meaning of every verse in the Torah, literally, to be able to debate about it?
Was that my responsibility to make sure I did learn that throughout yeshiva?
100%, I'll tell you why. Because I would not go to debate any book that I'm not an expert in.
Well,
If I'm an expert, for instance, in a book, I once had a famous debate with a Christian professor. In order for me to come and debate someone who teaches 30 years Christianity in a university in Manhattan, I must be an expert in Christianity to criticize this religion. If I do not know 5% of that religion, I'm not going to make a joke out of myself coming to express my opinions about Christianity when after an hour everyone will know that I'm not such a great expert in Christianity. Or if the same thing, if I want to criticize Shakespeare, and then in the end they'll find out I never read even one thing that Shakespeare wrote, I mean, I'm going to be the clown of the town. So my question to both of you, very nice guy, I already see from your body language, you're nice people. The question is, when you come to, there's one thing you come, you ask questions, I'm here at your service to answer all your questions, I will give you even my book as a gift, no problem. The question is, but to debate, to argue about something, I don't accept this, for me that's not literal, I don't agree with the stoning, I don't agree with the punishment to the gays, I don't agree with intermarriage, or any other topic. First, you have to know from A to Z what the Torah discusses. Once you know the entire subject, then of course you ask any question you want. You say, I disagree with this. You hear what I'm saying or no?
100%.
Okay,
So I did read the Torah when I was a little bit more from a few years ago. I used to study in yeshiva. I read it from start to finish, Tanakh, Torah Nevi'im, Ketuvim. I did not do all of Shas. I learned Gemara. I learned to the best of my abilities. I will say though that my position comes from the fact that I hear you 100%. If you want to argue something, you should know both sides. But there's something about the claim, the extraordinary claim of the Torah, saying, listen, this is, and I think you would agree, it's from God. It should be perfect. There's no flaws. This was the creator of the universe. If there's a single mistake, I've heard a lot of Rabbi say, if there's a single mistake, it's
Right.
invalid.
it's not divine.
Correct. So that being said, when there's extraordinary claims like that, although I happen to have read it, I think Daniel or other people are still capable to have a surface deep understanding. I do say that they should at least go one time through it on the English verse, at least know what it's saying. But that being said, that's where I come from. It's not to be this ga'avadik, arrogant person. It's just I've seen these mistakes, or what I see as inconsistencies. And I read it through, and I've I asked a few questions. It's not just the Torah also. I tried to study my history, tried to study a few other sources. But that being said, I think that's really, not as relevant right now, how much we know per se, because, you know it. We ask the questions. You can tell if we're just making something up out of thin air that was never there.
No problem.
But that's really where, the questions come in, because if this thing is so perfect, what evidence is there of this?
So let me just clarify with you. You agree that the Jews received the Torah in a public event in Mount Sinai, and from then on it was transferred from father to son until today. You understand that this fact is reality, it's history, or are you challenging this fact?
I'm challenging that fact.
You're not sure that we got the Torah?
Yeah,
That's what he's
correct,
saying.
Correct.
So
Do you
this-
agree with him?
I understand what emet is.
Yeah.
I just want it passed out or given out in a certain way that's not so controlled in a sense, because something you mentioned before, we won't let people just come into Judaism and convert if they just want a political advantage or something like that. But the rabbinical council itself is politically intertwined, and there is some corruption to it as well.
All right. So wait, we have two different beginning points.
Correct.
He has a doubt to begin with if Judaism is valid.
Oh no,
Because he may think that this all made up, that was never really happened. That's complete different debate. Someone like you, it's a different story. You say, okay, the Torah was given to the Jews. I'm not questioning that fact, but I think the rabbis messed it up with political agenda.
Man is corrupt, 1,000%. It says it in Bereshit.
So we have two different approaches.
So you agree the Torah was given at Mount Sinai?
this is why I mentioned this in the beginning of the episode. Some of the things he says is his stance. Some of the things I say is my stance. Just because he's saying something doesn't mean it's on my behalf.
Of course.
As well.
Yeah, we're just two separate people, separate secular.
Exactly.
Tell me
So
what
there's two
makes you
different-
question that fact that billions of people admit, like Muslim, Christian, Jews, and many other religions and cults do not deny the fact that the Jews received the Torah in a public event. As a matter of fact, Muhammad, the founder of Islam, called us the nation of the book. And in Islam, it speaks about the fact that the Jews got the Torah in Mount Sinai. The Goyim, the non-Jews, do not deny it. Yeah. It's almost impossible to find an Arab in the world that would tell you that Ibrahim, it wasn't exist, or Yusuf, or Dawood, or Yaqub. This is all coming from our Torah. Their foundation of their religion comes from our Torah, and they are not denying that we received the Torah in a public event. Of course, in my book, you have many, many proofs for that leaves zero doubt that that really happened. But before we go into the scientific aspect, this is something that the majority of the people in the world admit. They live by it. There's all kinds of arguments about certain issues, but you questioning it. Can you tell me why, please?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think we should also address that you and I agree on one thing, that although the Christians and Muslims agree, you and I both don't agree with them. The only difference between us is I'm including 15 million Jews that I disagree with as well. So I'm just taking it a little further. The billions of people, you also disagree with billions of people.
No, but when you see that your enemies, for instance, the Muslims, most of them hate Jews. So when you see as much as they hate us, they admit in their books and in their everyday learning that the Jews received the Torah from God and not denying it. And some of them even respect the Torah. They reserved the Torah in Iraq for almost 2,000 years when with Saddam Hussein, they were reserving it. So the idea is that as much as they hate us, they're not questioning this fact that the Jews got the Torah from God. They have other issues. The Jews changed the Torah, the Jews modified the Torah. They have all kinds of inventions that they like to invent. But they're not the Christian called the Torah the Old Testament, and then they call their book the New Testament, which is a continuation from part 1 from the same God. That's when they messed up, because part 2 is completely contradicting part 1. So it's not from the same God, and that's what my debate with a Christian professor was about. My question to you is, what makes you think that something like this may not have happened? How can you plan such an event in history and convince billions of people that it happened, something like this, 3,300 years ago, and everyone, the people of the book, all of them confirmed that they were standing there receiving the Torah and changed their entire lifestyle from A to Z, from the minute Moshe gave them the Torah in a public event. They had to live in a complete different lifestyle that they lived until that moment. What makes you think that millions of people will cooperate with such a scam that messed up their own life?
Question.
You want to, yeah. So I hear your point, but so I've heard this argument, and it's a very famous discussion. Lawrence Kellerman talks about it. But the problem with this assumption is that it's assuming that it's a lie. It's assuming that this person was intentionally deceptive, whereas that's not how it happened. What happened was more of a gradual cultural evolution. And it was after the fact that we wrote about it, that okay, our ancestors long ago received this. We're already practicing these things because the culture evolved. There's even a lot of sources about disagreements between Rabbanim, even in the Gemara, where they talk about, that's what the Gemara essentially is by definition, right? It's, we were forgetting what to do, things were getting mixed up, we were kicked out, moving around, things were lost. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and then a few other succeeding rabbis decided we got to start writing these things down. So, I mean, and there's just so much other evidence, historically speaking, that contradicts the occurrence. So I think the burden of proof more, I think, is on you to prove that it did happen, given all the other circumstances.
It's very, very simple. Well, in the Torah addressed the people that received the Torah. For instance, in Islam, Muhammad came and said that Angel Gabriel gave him the Quran and he was alone. The Quran does not address the Arabs that lived at that generation. Same thing, the New Testament, they don't address the people that had some revelation or anything like that. Now here I come to 3.5 million people, and say to them, all of you heard me speaking to God in front of your eyes. You heard me speaking to God. No, you know one individual that can come to 3.5 million people and say to them, here is the book, I'm giving you the book today, and they open the book and they read that they came out of Egypt, they were slaves there, and they saw the Red Sea opening up, and they saw the 10 plagues in Egypt, and they even saw that I speak to God in front of their eyes. Now, this book called them to change their entire lifestyle from A to Z completely. Now they have to keep the Sabbath, they have to eat kosher, they cannot marry certain people, they cannot be gays, they cannot eat chametz and Pesach.
After the, okay.
Now, okay, so now I'm coming to a group of people. I'm your prophet. Here is the book that God gave me. All of you testify here in this book that you heard me speaking to God and I took you out of Egypt. And you saw all the miracles and you must keep the law. And some of you that will rebel against my book will get the death penalty. Now, how many people you know today, if you take 3.5 million people and I come to them and tell them fairy tales, one after the other, I took you out of Japan, I brought you to New York, I give you money every day, I fill up your bank account, bread is falling next to your home every day, you don't have to work, and you heard me speaking to God, didn't you? They would tell me, listen, you're not normal. You need a mental institution. We've never been in Japan. We didn't bring us to New York. You're not giving us anything. You did not perform any miracles. We didn't see the Red Sea splitting up. And we definitely didn't hear you speaking to God. Now, you know one person that will be that crazy to make such a claim to millions of people? And everyone confirm. Everyone say Na'aseh v'nishma. It's written in a book that they confirm. Remember, I can fool the whole world, but I cannot fool you. I cannot come and tell you certain things that I did for you because I never met you until today. So how can I come and convince you that the last year, all the miracles that happened to you, I did for you. I saved you. I took you out of slavery. I brought you here. You heard me receiving the Torah from God. And from now on, you're going to do exactly what I tell you. And you say, yes, sir, of course. I saw the miracles you did for me. I saw all the wonderful things. I'm confirming that everything is written in a book really happened to me. And therefore, I'm going to keep the Sabbath. People did things that are wrong even a minute after. A month later, they're already worshiping idol. But the idea is, as much as they gave Moshe Rabbeinu a very hard time, none of them denied the fact that he was the one who received the Torah from God. And the Torah is named after him. And all the people changed their lifestyle, include some of them had to get divorced because they were married to their aunt. And there was a big mess over there now. We just found out we have to change our entire life. And everybody cooperated with such a scam. What do you think? What are the odds?
So once again, I think you're reiterating the same claim, though. I'm not saying that it was and I don't think it's rational. I agree completely. No one would buy into this claim where, hey, I'm lying to you right now.
People
it wasn't
are not
like
interested
that.
to want to become religious so fast.
Exactly.
You have to beg them for a long time. All of a sudden, millions of people agree to change their entire lifestyle.
Exactly.
It's very, very unlikely.
What I was saying was that this event happened post factum. It was an after the fact occurrence where a group of people evolved.
I tell you it cannot be.
What?
Why? Because what you are saying is that all the parents or grandparents cooperated in such a scam that everyone agreed to the scam to inherit a lie to their children for no personal gain. Why would they gain from it? Why would someone plan such an event in history if he doesn't have any personal gain? You see, when I come and I say I'm Muhammad and I got the Quran from Agent Gabriel and all of you must give me 10% of your income, I have personal gain. All of you must bow down to me. Everyone who would not listen to me, I will kill him. You must do exactly what I tell you. I'm gaining a lot. But why would I plan something for the future generation to tell them such a scam? For what? What exactly will I gain from it?
Isn't that how control works?
No, but he will be dead already. By the time it will happen. It's like me writing such a fake event now. And then maybe 100 or 200 years ago, it will affect people that I won't be there to see. It's a very foolish claim.
I don't agree that it's a control thing. And I want to just reiterate, it wasn't something that the grandparents were also in on a deception. This was, first of all, there's no evidence whatsoever. Besides the Torah, right? You can't, there's another argument. You can't use the Torah
it's written,
to prove the
no,
Torah.
but it's written in a Torah that the people that received the Torah for the first time, they are the people who came out of Egypt. So you cannot plan something like this later in history, and no one has any evidence that their grandparents received such a book. All of a sudden, out of nowhere.
Okay.
It's like planting September 11 in history, in the mind of people, knowing it never happened. It's not realistic.
No, but
it's not realistic.
but what is possible is saying a story about the Iraq War, about our grandparents, saying, okay, you know what? Exaggerating a story, right? That's possible. That happens all the time.
That could be.
We exaggerate story. So let's say a group of Jews leave Mitzrayim. They're not a million. They're not. It's not 3 million. Not even 600,000. Maybe 1,000, 10,000 people, and it's a gradual influx. And I'm not the only one who holds this. Eli Barnavi writes a book called The Historical Atlas of the Jewish People, where he cites like 18 different historical sources. These are people that got. There are two theories about what really happened, and it's that there was two big waves of Jewish emigration, or gradual trickling of Jews into the Canaanite area, assimilating and cultural diffusion occurs. You have different ideas exchange, and a gradual development of this belief occurs. And after the fact, every generation succeeding embellishes the story a little bit more. How many stories from your grandparents? You know this also.
No, but it also cannot be what you claim. Because remember, in order for something like you to happen, that's supposed to be a slow evolution of something like this. A person getting another one and another one and another one, and they join the cult, and the story is developing, and they adding details to the story. That's not possible, because remember, in this event, the Jewish nation came out of Egypt, and right there, and they received the Torah in a public event. And plus, the Torah is full of prophecies. Almost all the prophecies in the Torah already happen in details. Now, those prophecies are against all odds. The chance that these prophecies will happen was 1 to 1 trillion. I'll give you one example, just for you to understand. The Torah says, Kish'alna liyamim rishonim. Go and check in history. And remember, the Torah is relevant to every Jew in every generation until the end of days. Same relevance today when it was 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. And the Torah said to every Jew, even right now, open the Torah and read and check the history. Did you have a group of non-Jews ever that claim that I spoke to them and had a revelation with them and gave them a book? A group, not individuals. Ashama Am, it's a large group. השמע עם כל אלוהים מדבר אליו מתוך האש כאשר שמעת אתה ויחי. Did you ever have a group of people that came anywhere in the world and claimed that I came to them and gave them a book like I gave to you, and they survived to tell the story? Go check in history. You will never find ever a group of non-Jews that come and make such a claim. How about individual?
Jesus and Muhammad
no,
individual?
that's an individual.
Private also.
One
No
individual,
witnesses.
80,000 times, one individual came and started some fake religion or a fake cult.
No witnesses.
One individual with no witnesses.
Okay, so
But there is never...
13 apostles, whatever his...
no.
You know how Christianity started?
what-
With a dream of a woman, Miriam. She became pregnant, not from her husband. They asked her what's going on. She said, God came to me in a dream, and that's how Christianity started. Story of one woman who had incentive to lie to save her life from death. Because in those days, a woman that cheated on her husband would get the death penalty, not a TV show like today. Today they get a TV show. They become very, very cool because it's in style to do it. But back then, Jews and non-Jews, when they cheated in such a case, it was a death penalty. So the idea is a woman that has all the reasons in the world to lie to save her life. She made up a story, and now 2 billion people follow Christianity thanks to that story. Same thing, Muhammad came from the desert and claimed the angel gave him the Quran. He was alone, according to the Torah, there was no witnesses. Same thing, Buddha, 2,400 years ago. He saw the light, he had an enlightenment. How many people were with you? No one. You get the concept?
That quote, I think, was talking about Hashem revealing himself and living. I think the emphasis was on, has anyone else seen me and lived? Because there's a lot of other follow-up quotes in the Chumash talking about Hashem revealing himself to Moshe. And even in
read the text over there. השמע עם כל אלוהים מדבר אליו מתוך האש כאשר שמעת אתה ויחי. או הניסה אלוהים לבוא לקחת לו גוי מקרב גוי באותות, במופתים ובמסות, כאשר עשה השם אלוקיך לעיניך, אתה הורית לדעת כי השם הוא האלוקים, השמיים עם מעל הארץ ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. Translation. It's written, do you have, check in history, will you ever find a group of people that claim that I gave them any book or had revelation of them or made any miracles for them as I did to you in front of your own eyes? Your eyes saw what I've done for you. This is a direct referral from God to the Jewish people. Now remember, all we needed in the last 3,300 years, 10, 20, 30, 50 Gentiles who made a conspiracy theory, all come together. They said we were in a desert. God came to us and gave us this book, and he nominated John to be the leader. This will already made the Torah have one mistake in it. Now, do you know one human being that will take such a foolish risk? If I know I'm not a prophet, and I'm pretending to be, and I made up a fake book, and I want to control the life of millions of people, why will I take a risk putting over 100 prophecies in the Torah, which the chance that it will happen is 1 to 1 trillion? Why would I jeopardize my status? For instance, in the Quran, you don't have one prophecy. The Muslims scream, Prophet Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad. I'll give
They
you a
actually
prize
do.
if
There's
you
not
find
one prophecy in the Quran?
They do have some
What
prophecies.
about
They
the
have
Gog and
prophecies.
Magog, the two giants?
No,
that-
they have prophecies about the sands.
Whatever they have there, they copy from our prophets. That's not a prophecy. You see, if I write a letter and you copy from my letter the letter is mine, not yours. The fact that you copy 2 years later.
Ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did the Arabs that were pagans in Saudi Arabia back in the day, did they have access to the Torah?
The Torah was translated in the same generation that it was received to 70 different languages already. Why? All the people in the world were fascinated by the fact that the Jews received the Torah, and they right away wanted to translate it to their language. Now, I give you an example how a conspiracy theory affects the mind of millions of people, and they don't use the head to think. You know, the Muslims came up with a lie that the Jews modified the Torah, that really Abraham did not take Isaac to the Moriah mountain to slaughter him. It was actually Ishmael. The Jews modified the Torah. So I argued once with an Arab professor from Saudi Arabia. I said to him, so you're 100% sure that there was Ishmael, not there? So can you please explain to me how millions of Jews who were scattered all over the world, one day wake up in the morning, there are hundreds of thousands of Torahs in the world. One day, out of nowhere, all the Jews, without telephone, without emails, without internet, all of them wake up and decided to take the Torah and modify the Torah in the same place, in the same line, with the same names, and all of them decided to switch Isaac with Ishmael. How exactly it happened? Did you ever find a Torah anywhere in the world that says that in that text that it was Ishmael? If you would find one copy somewhere in one country, at least it would create a debate. But all the Torahs in the world has the same exact names and the same exact words. How all of a sudden you came up with such an idea? The answer, it's baloney. It's nonsense. It's just politics.
Yeah, we don't disagree with the Islam. I disagree with Islam as well. I think we should, stay at the topic of the Torah.
Let's move on.
You're claiming, so once again, I don't see this as a bomb kasha, as they would say. It's not a real good claim because I think it's subjective. You can interpret, you can say you can interpret the sentence to mean a lot of things. First of all, there are a lot of Quranic hadiths, I think, or surahs that predict things like fingerprint scanning, how the flesh will soon testify against you, and a whole slew of things that the Quran and the Muslims, not that I agree with their religion, but they also say things like, we predicted all these amazing things. There was also a revelation that Muhammad split the moon amongst thousands of non-believers, thousands that it was said, and they all collectively agreed. This concept of it's impossible to pass a lie because it was written after the fact, that so many people saw it, is not a legitimate basis to say it couldn't have been invented. Because once again, I'm agreeing with you, no one lied intentionally. So it's just an incorrect inference. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that this was a deception and someone was so smart and took a big risk. He didn't take a risk. There was a lot of things that they just collectively believed. They wrote post after the fact, and there are no, Once again,
But for
what
reason?
better
But
claims?
for what reason?
Because they genuinely believe, we genuinely didn't know much about the world.
If you go over the 613 commandments, do you know how many of them are against human logic? Completely against human logic.
There's a bunch.
More
There's a
than
bunch.
80%.
But these people back.
More than 80%. Now, let me ask you this. If someone makes a fake book, he writes 613 commandments, all of you must follow it. If he writes you should not kill, it makes sense. It's good for society. You should not steal, makes sense. You should not cheat, makes sense. Give charity to the poor, makes sense. Respect your father and mother, makes sense, right? A lot of these things, you and I, if we would write a fake book, we would want those laws to be a part of humanity. Hopefully. But what in the world would I benefit from to make hundreds of laws about sacrifices, killing animals, millions of them every year, slaughtering them, burning them on the altar, taking the blood, putting it here in the ear of the Kohen, putting it in his toe, splashing it in a certain way on the corner of the altar or on the parochet, and doing and certain parts giving to this person and certain parts to this person, and certain parts must be burned, and you cannot go over the sunrise because by then there's hundreds of very, very strange laws which no human being whatsoever will make, because even the wildest dream, no one will make such strange laws. All the laws of sacrifices, the laws of mitzvah shiluach haken. Why would a person make a law that 1 week you're not allowed to eat bread, 5 kinds of grains? What benefit will I get from it? I say, if I tell you, give me 10% from your income, oh, you can say, okay, I benefit from it. If I tell you you should not kill, I benefit for it because you're not going to kill me. If I tell you you should not steal, it's good for our environment. But if I say to you, you lit a fire on Shabbat, because of that you have to travel 2 weeks from Tiberias all the way to Jerusalem, carry a big ship, climb the mountain, sweat like crazy from the heat, bring this to the Kohen has to slaughter it, and you have to repent for turning the fire on, and then 2 weeks to go back all the way to the north of Israel. It will cost you your business, your family will fall apart, and people will hate you. When someone make a fake book, does he want the people to accept it willingly, or he want everyone to become his enemy? Why would I give you laws that will make you lose tons of money, tons of times, will make you hate me, and will make you think that I'm crazy, when I benefit nothing from it? What would I benefit from it? You see, if I had 20, 30 logical laws, everyone will accept the Torah and kiss my hand and tell me you're the greatest leader. You're a very logical leader. But when I give you 500 laws that are against human logic, everybody lose and I gain nothing. Plus, I write about myself that I'm stuttering, I'm not such a great, talented speaker. Why would someone do such thing?
To my point, you're telling me with so many stringent, many little laws, there's not 1 ounce of corruption that could have gotten intertwined into all of
You
that?
are speaking about something else.
Right, no. So
human nature, unfortunately, has a part of it has corruption.
Okay.
People deceive, people lie. It's against the Torah. For instance, if you see a religious man steal, doesn't mean the Torah allowed to steal. If you see ever a religious man kill, doesn't mean the Torah allowed it. You cannot judge Judaism by the behavior of the Jews, of the religious Jews. We are not representative of God. We do good things and we do bad things. When you see us do bad things, it doesn't mean God allow it to do. You understand? You cannot judge Judaism by the behavior of the people.
Same thing goes, just because you don't know Allah doesn't mean it doesn't apply to you.
Exactly. Not knowing the law does not dismiss you from the punishment, right?
We kind of got a little sidetracked here. I mean, so from what I gathered, your claim is that because the Torah is so outrageous in some areas, which happens to be a product of contemporary belief, people in Babylon, in ancient Egypt, and Assyria, they believed in sacrificing animals and all these things, but because it has such crazy beliefs, that means it's from God? Is that the argument? Is that what you're saying?
It's not only the sacrifices.
Because I don't...
It's not only the sacrifices. Give me one...
Everything.
Give me one reason why a person will care if you eat spaghetti in the week between the 15th of Nisan to the 22nd. Why will I gain from it if you eat bread at home or not?
He wouldn't care.
Why
but
would
the-
I
but
make
the
such a law?
He wouldn't care, but the religion wasn't
What for?
gained. The religion wasn't created to make the gain of one person. That's my point. I'm asking you.
Again,
what
fake
makes it?
religions have the faker who made it up has reasons. Reasons have to be logical in human logic. I have no incentive whatsoever to make difficult laws, strange laws, who make everybody suffer and make me gain nothing. It never happened in history that someone will do such thing unless he's totally crazy. If it's a mental case, okay. But someone's charismatic who comes to the people and tell them he's the prophet, all of you heard me speaking to God, give them the religion, and 80% of the laws that are against their logic. And some of them has that penalty. For instance, I give you an example of what you said before. You say that the rabbis changed it over the years. Like, I think you say that. But yeah, I have news for you. Every rabbinical restriction that the rabbis wrote in the Talmud or even later on, every one of them they had the full authority to do because it's a clear verse in the Torah. The Torah says that if you have a problem in a generation, if you have a question, you come to the Kohen and to the Dayan. Dayan means a judge of your generation, of your place, and ask them what to do. Everything they will instruct you based on this Torah, you must listen to them. Do not move left or right from what they are going to tell you. And right after that it says, and those who will not obey this instruction will be put to death. Uviarta aram Israel. Meaning people who would not listen to the sages. I put the Torah as a raw material in the hand of the sages of every generation. We had prophets, then we had the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, then we had the Tanaim, then we had the Amoraim, then the Talmud was concluded in Babylon and in Jerusalem. And from then on, no one is allowed to modify anything. Once the Talmud was sealed, that's it. Now everything else you see, it's the laws that came from the Talmud. If it's not in a Talmud, it's not considered a valid rule. We are not making up new rules for the last 2,000 years. No. Once the Talmud was sealed, that's it. Shulchan Aruch is just abbreviation of everything the Talmud discussed. Halacha, Nemaaseh.
But we agree that things were changed until that point and amended and compiled and that's exactly.
It's no problem whatsoever because the Torah already said, "V'haya ki yeh machloket acharei rabim la'atot." Hashem said, there will be different opinions about what to do about this specific law. Why? Because, like you say, people have opinions and different understanding. So if Rabbi X say it's allowed, and Rabbi Y say it's not allowed, and then Rabbi Z come and say it's allowed, we have to follow the majority. But the majority, I'll give you an example. A lot of people, like you say, translate the Torah literally. You don't translate the Torah literally. Right. If you translate the Torah literally, you will mess up the whole Torah. That's what happened to the Reform people. The Karaites, they put talit on the wall. Why? Because it says you should see it. You understand? We're not translating the Torah literally. What we are doing is, remember, we got 613 commandments, and each one of the commandments, it does not say a word in the written Torah how to keep them. It doesn't say how to keep Shabbat. It doesn't say how many restrictions you have in Shabbat. It only says that if you break Shabbat, you're going to get the death penalty and your soul will be cut from the afterlife for eternity. That's all it says. Mot yomad v'nichreta nefesh ha'im me'amea. Nothing else. The only thing about Shabbat that it says, you should not create fire. But we know there are 39 restrictions. Where did we get them? From the Talmud. Where the Talmud got them from? From the description how to build the Mishkan. That Hashem said to Moshe how to build the temporary Mishkan. And in the end, he said to Moshe, on Shabbat, no one is allowed to prepare anything for the Mishkan. From here we learn that all the 39 things that we do to make the temporary temple, the portable temple, are forbidden on Shabbat. Now, besides the 39 Avot Melacha, there are many categories which the Talmud discuss, and there are arguments, like he said. But in the end, whatever halacha was ruled, that's how we are going to be judged. Meaning Hashem wanted us to learn all our life Torah, to dig and investigate in the oral laws, and to come up with our own verdicts. It's written clearly in the text. Once the Chachamim made up in the Talmud, halacha lemaaseh, that's the halacha like Rabbi Akiva, halacha like Rabbi Yehuda, halacha, the Talmud say
When
what's...
was the Talmud established again? What time frame?
It was concluded 1600 years ago, but it was a period of 400 years. It took 400 years from the time of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi until Rav Ashi and Ravina concluded the Talmud. It was 400 years. By the way, you know, Rav Ashi and Ravina, they didn't have internet, they didn't have search engines, they didn't have that. They were sitting in their short lifetime and concluded thousands of topics in Judaism and knew all the opinions of all the rabbis in every topic, everyone what argument he would make. And they created debate in the Talmud with no contradictions against themselves. Meaning when they speak in Masechet Shabbat, they speak in a different Masechet. They always remember all the opinion. This is unhuman. Wow. Even if you give me a mega computer and 50,000 employees to write such a thing today, I wouldn't be able to do it. That's not human. That's way above the ability of humanity. Do you know you know how many thousands of topics, very complicated topics you have in the Talmud? And they knew the opinion of each Chacham, each Tana, each Amora. It's unbelievable.
Well, who's to say we didn't have any
there's
assistance?
no electronic, no electric, no search engine. It was all in their head.
So they were very smart. They were very smart, but were they divine? This is really the point, and we're getting very sidetracked. For the sake of time, I know you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I want to stick to the point of, right, we're talking Gemara, we're talking Torah. You agree then that it doesn't have to be interpreted literally. There were a lot of developments and changes. That was my point.
But the Torah said whatever halacha was made by the sages of the generation, that's obligates everyone from then on. No one is allowed to contradict
sages are pure,
it.
though. Who's to say those sages didn't have any kind of...
Once you read about their life and how they were, you won't ask this question. I want to tell you one thing. I want to just tell you one thing. If you take all the rabbis in the world today combined and put them on a scale and put Rabbi Akiva on the other side, is greater than all of them combined. This is the kind of people we are talking here about. Do you understand?
I don't know that.
What's to say?
You don't know it. I'm not blaming you for not knowing.
The same rabbi that can tell me you must, treat and respect every person accordingly can go home to his wife and treat her like garbage.
But I want to tell you something. You know what's the difference between me and you? When I do not know something, I don't jump to any conclusion. Meaning I understand I don't know. I go to someone that knows. Please explain to me how does it make sense. And and usually I get the answers. What I'm telling you right now is we had people in the history of the Jewish people, tens of thousands of unbelievable rabbis, the Gaon Mivilna, the Ben Ish Chai, the Ari Kadosh, the Rambam. If you read about who these people were, all of them knew the Torah from right to left, left to right, in the middle of the night. Every verse, they know every prophet, every pasuk, every word, every Mishnah, everything was in front of their eyes, and they kept all the Torah and the mitzvot. So people that are a million times smarter than all of us combined, million times smarter, which knew everything, did not dare to commit one sin a year even. Now, are you, both of you, claiming that all these tens of thousands of unbelievable scholars were all dumb, and we, the new pioneers of the 21st century, we know that the Torah is questionable and it's, come on. You gotta learn from other people's knowledge and experience. When I go to my accountant, I don't question his knowledge in accounting because it's 50 years an accountant. When I go to the brain surgeon, I won't ask questions about brain because I know he knows what he's doing. I don't.
So
you get the point?
Rabbi, just and if you could let me, I just want to really target the point.
I would like you to read this. I believe, personally, my personal belief, that after you read my book, we wouldn't need that conversation today. After you read it. But
I will.
At least I hope it will make you want to read it.
I don't want to take too much away from the direction of the topic, so please, Manny.
So I want to try to, he may be a little bit more amenable to certain changes and questions. I want to just kind of direct the more, what I think are the more pressing matters here. Being, for example, right, we never got around my original claim. So I want to hear from you, what are these proofs? You're right, they're smart, incredible minds. Rambam, the Arizal, all these incredible scholars, but This only proves that the Torah is a compilation from ingenious people and very smart. There are wise people that are Islamic, there are wise people that are Christian, there are wise scientists and physicists that you would disagree with by believing in the Torah, by believing that the earth has a certain life, that the earth, all things about science that you're assuming. So this argument that, oh, they're so smart, you shouldn't disagree with them because of how smart they were, it's not valid here. What I want to know is...
That's not the main argument.
But
I will take you back to what I said.
So how is
the
it divine?
Torah is full
How is
of
it divine?
prophecies. For instance, when it's written in the Torah, I'm taking you to the land of Canaan. There are 7 massive nations there with massive army who sits there for a long, long time. I'm going to throw them out of the land and give you the land as I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You do not be afraid of them and do not make any covenant with them or no peaceful agreement with them. I'm taking you to the land. Now remember, we're a nation that came out of Egypt. We are receiving the Torah. And we are getting a prophecy that we're going to get the land of Israel. It took 40 years after we got the Torah. And we come to Israel and there's a war. And by the way, they found archaeological things that written in the book of Joshua. For instance, the altar of Yoshua ben Nun was found in Har Eval, the mountain of Eval, as it's written in the book of Joshua. And hundreds of archaeological proofs that the Jews arrived at that time and they fought the Canaani, the Amorites, all the nations that are written in the Torah. As a matter of fact, we just read about them in Shabbat on the parasha. And what human being can have the guts to tell a nation of 3 million people with mostly women and children, and the men is not such great warriors, after all, they just came out of slavery, to come to nations with horses and massive armies, 7 nations sitting in the land. Don't be afraid of them. I'll throw them out. I'm giving you the land, and all of them will agree to come to the land of Israel and kick them out, which, by the way, this is even the historians of the Goyim prove it. If you read history books, that the Jews came to Israel and kicked the Canaani. Until today, some people call it the land of Canaan. There's no argument about it, that the Philistines lived there and Samson and Delilah was in Gaza. Same problems that happened today happened 3,000 years ago. The time of the judges. Now remember, what human being, name one, will come to a nation and tell them we're going into a land with 7 armies? Russia, Korea, United States, China, France and Germany and England, they're all waiting for you with a weapon, and we're going to kick them out and I'm going to give you the land. Do you know one person would cooperate on a journey? People will kill me in a minute. This is a prophecy against all odds. It's a prophecy that happened in details. The Jews came to Israel and kicked out the 7 nations just like God said. Nobody argued about that. This is a fact. This is
something written after the fact, though, right? Like you're saying it's easy to position this as a difficult thing to sell because you're saying, oh, he convinced them ahead of time. He said we're going to do it and then we did it. That's not how it happened. No. It happened. And then that's my point. I want to hear how was this? Tell me how this was divine.
So you basically say that the entire Torah was written after everything happened.
What's the oldest complete?
Do you really buy it?
What's the oldest complete Torah we have today?
By the way, some of the prophecies happened in our time. That was in the Torah.
The oldest. I'm just saying. I understand that, but these are.
For instance, about the Romans coming to destroy the temple.
Okay.
About the Holocaust, there's a prophecy about the Holocaust in Parashat Vayelech.
I hear that. I know these prophecies, but they're vague. They're vagaries that can be interpreted as any. Oh, there's an empire that's going to come and destroy you.
I'm sorry, I disagree with you. The Torah said that God said to Moshe, one day the Jewish nation will rebel against me and leave me. And I'm telling you already right now that I will send a very cruel nation to destroy them. I will hide my face. I will not have mercy on them. I would leave them in the hand of these goyim, and they will eat them alive. This is describing a Holocaust. Now he comes and say, how do you know it's talking about the Holocaust? Maybe it's talking about a different tragedy.
Any big pogrom you could say.
The Jewish nation had a lot of pogroms and many other things, right? I have news for you. In this page in the Torah that speaks about the Holocaust, the word Holocaust appears in hidden mathematical skip. How do you say Holocaust in Hebrew? Shoah. Ha-Shoah. Hey, Shin, Vav, Aleph, Hey. You have the letter Hey. You can see it in my book. I show it. Hey, circle the A. Count 49 letters. The 50th letter will be Shin. Count 49 letter, the 50th letter will be Vav. Count 49 letter, the 50th letter will be Aleph. Count 49 letter, the 50th letter will be Hey. HaShoah, the Holocaust, appear in the only page in the Torah that describe a Holocaust. What are the odds that something like this would happen? But you know what? It's not only this word. You have more than 20 words that connect to the Nazis. Adolf Eichmann, Rudolf Hess.
I know about the math codes. These are not.
Equal mathematical skip.
I
That's
understand your
called
point.
codes in the Torah.
The mathematical codes. You have a book with 308,000 letters. You're going to have a lot of. You could do this with the Quran too. The Quran, there's a lot. There's an imam. There are a lot of imams I've even seen. They tell me there's codes where you can count. You can do it with any book when you have that many letters.
They check when they came up with
There's
the program.
better things.
They check one.
There's better things to validate the Torah with.
They checked 130 books when they came. This is scientists. Dr. Doron Witztum and Professor Ilya Reeves is one of the greatest mathematicians in the world. They were not religious. They were totally secular communists. He came from Russia. Professor Reeves, I met him personally. He was a Russian communist. He was asked to develop a computer software to search for codes in the Torah. While they were building that software, they both became ultra-Orthodox religious people. Well, the reason is because it left no doubt whatsoever that this Torah can never be written by a human being, only by the creator of the world. And not only that, the mistake that everyone make, include his mistake, is they searching for codes, random codes in books. Any book you want, you're going to find codes. But what they are not understanding is, we are not searching for random codes. We tell the computer minimal mathematical skill. The highlight is on the word minimal. And I'll tell you change the entire thing. When you look for codes, no matter what kinds of code, 10,000 skip, 50,000 skip, obviously you're going to find randomly a lot of words. We are not interested to find words in a book. We are interested that all the words that relates to one topic will come in one page. And this you don't have in any book, not in Islam and no other book. And they check 130 books. You can check the article in Statistical Science. They check 100, include Moby Dick, include the dictionary. They took books that are the size of the Torah, and no substantial codes were found. But in the Torah, for instance, just in the first book in the Torah, you had more than 50 equal mathematical skip about fruits and vegetables. This is when God said to Adam, I put you in the Garden of Eden, I want you to watch the trees, it's all under your supervision. In that page that's speaking about the Garden of Eden, you have more than 50 words, name of fruits and vegetables, all in equal mathematical skip, all in one page, not random. On the Holocaust, more than 20 words that connects to the Holocaust, all in one page. AIDS appear in Parashat Noach that speaks about homosexual. From all the Torah, where does AIDS appear? In a place when God speaks about this problem that he wiped out the people of Sodom. Until today, in all the courts in Israel, when they convict a person in a sexual crime, they call it an act of Sodom. This is 3,300 years after it was written in the Torah. Maybe the Israeli judge doesn't even know what he's talking about, but that's just to show you that
that's not a prediction, no. That's
scientific proofs.
Can I ask?
It cannot be random.
So the Torah is perfect and the Gemara is perfect. Would you say that?
What does it mean, the word perfect?
Is it without mistake?
Perfect.
Is it without a mistake?
Written
is it
Torah
without?
Absolutely have no mistakes.
Okay, and the Gemara, because you use proofs from the Gemara.
The Torah already says that when people argue about subjects, one will be right and the other may be wrong. But in the end, all I care, God say, is what's going to be the halakha that was determined. Once the halakha was determined, that's what everybody must do. It's written in the book of God. Do not dare to move left and right from what they instruct you. Because anyone who will disrespect their verdict will be put to death. That's a verse in the divine book. So once I come and I say, Jonathan is my representative, and Jonathan is my representative, and he runs this place. Whoever disagree with him, disagree with me. Whoever mess up with him, mess up with me. That's it. That's the end of the argument. Okay. What's more to argue? Well,
so back to the point.
Opinion about God. It's up to you.
Back to the point of the halakha here. So what's there to say? You're saying the written Torah is perfect. It has claims that
It's full of prophecies.
that didn't happen. I hear you. You want to go to the prophecies. I think there's still so
And
much to prove.
There's also knowledge about nature that human being can never have.
And
you know
this
the proof about the fish? The
That's
scales and the
the
fins?
Talmud. That's the Gemara.
Yeah, but
And the Gemara way, but
needless
also
to say,
but
if
the
it's
Gemara,
in the Talmud,
but one second,
needless
but-
to say that
let
it
me-
comes from the written Torah.
But the Gemara also says that lice don't procreate,
Right.
which is what the halacha, and it ends up being that the Shulchan Aruch allows you to kill lice on Shabbat,
Right.
but it turns out they do procreate. Lice are insects that do procreate. This is actually killing. So not only did we have a fallacy in the Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch and the halacha practices.
Very good point. I have a lecture. It's called 3 Kinds of Information in the Talmud. I am not going to give you the whole speech, but give me half a minute. I will explain to you what the Talmud is. The Talmud mainly is what the laws that God gave us in Mount Sinai. Obviously, there's only the name of the mitzvah, the name of the commandment, with no instructions how to follow it. We don't know how to keep it. We don't know how to circumcise baby. We don't know how to prepare tefillin. There are thousands of instructions how to make a pair of tefillin. If one of them you did incorrectly, it's not kosher. None of that is written in a written Torah. On purpose, God did not want information from the oral Torah to be in a written Torah because the Gentiles copy the written Torah right away and they will have all the secrets how to keep everything. Then after 2 generations, you would not be able to tell who is a Jew and who's not. Because everybody then had beard and everyone had covered on their head and everyone would circumcise the babies and everyone will have tefillin and mezuzah and they would write the Sefer Torah and then you would not know who is really the children of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob that were chosen by God and who is a pretender. You would not know. And then it would be intermarriage, which is a very, very big violation against God's laws, because he doesn't allow the Jews to marry any other nation, even if they're better than us.
So what are the three? So what's the Gemara point? I know there is
halacha lemaaseh. What God told us in the Torah, that's what we discuss in the Talmud, but there are 2 other things. One more thing is history, the life of the rabbis, events, destruction of the temple, the Goyim attacked us, there was a war, there's all kinds of incidents. It's written in the Talmud. And secular wisdom. What does it mean, secular wisdom? At the time when the Talmud was written, who were the scientists in the world? The Greeks. The Greeks. The Greeks were mathematicians, they learned geometry, astronomers, the Romans later after the Greeks. So the Gemara says, Chochma b'goyim ta'amin. There were a lot of debates between Chachmei Israel, the scholars of the nation of Israel, and the scholars of the other nations. And the Gemara sometimes say that the scholars of the non-Jews were right in the argument. The Gemara say it. The Gemara says sometimes the Goyim, when they argue about secular studies, they write more than us about that particular matter. Why? Because it's secular. It's not from God. It's open to investigation, open to opinions, open to research. Now, if I write a book today and I want to know if a specific medicine is allowed to be taken on Shabbos, on Shabbat, in order for me to rule on it, I have to go to a special doctor who knows about the brain, what does medicine does. The doctor gives me all his review. After I hear what the medicine does to the body, I write in my book, allowed to be taken on Shabbat or not allowed. What happened after I left the world, 50 years later, a much better doctor with much better equipment came to the world. And now a different rabbi, 50 years from now, will come to that professor and he will tell him something a little bit different, which changed the entire fact. And he would write, I say it's allowed on Shabbat, and that professor say it's not allowed. Now, people would come and say, you see, the rabbis don't know what they're talking about. Rabbi Mizrachi 50 years ago say you're allowed to take it on Shabbat. Rabbi X 50 years later say, oh, it's a very big sin to take it on Shabbat. Why don't the rabbis make up their mind? You see that we cannot count on a rabbi? That's what his argument is, even though he didn't say it in words.
That's
okay.
not what
Okay, so now I'll explain to you.
Because you're saying they're divine. If they're truly, if they have Ruach HaKodesh.
No, but I told you there are 3 different things in the Talmud.
But
what we got in Mount Sinai, it's 100% divine. You will never find mistakes there. But there are other things the rabbis wrote in the Talmud, things that they copy from the Greeks. And based on what the Greeks that were checking all day the nature and all kinds of things, some of the things the Greek were believing in, today we know that it wasn't true. But that's not divine information and it's not related to Jewish law. It's general studies. For instance, there is argument about the life of Rabbi Akiva. What age he went to this place? One person say age 40, the other one would say age 45. That's not relevant to Torah from Sinai.
So you agree the Talmud is unreliable, though? It's unreliable, yet we extrapolate halacha from it.
No.
The lice is a perfect example.
You see, in this book, you have a lot of things that comes from the Torah and comes from Mount Sinai, what we got from Mount Sinai. But there's also things here that relates to today's world, that we get from the news, we get from today's scientists. If in 50 years from now, we will find out that the scientists of today were mistaken, and what they claim is incorrect, you're going to come in 50 years and say, you see, the book has a mistake. No, the book does not have mistake. The doctors had mistake. The scientist had a mistake, and me, as the rabbi of the generation, copy from his knowledge.
So even now where we stand, halachot can be changed now, right?
No, again.
So halachot can be changed
You're
now?
saying the Gemara, where the Gemara is wrong,
Again.
it was just the information they got at the time.
Again, rabbi has to rule what's allowed, what's not allowed. How will he get the information? If they make a shaving machine, I want to know if it's kosher or not, because shaving machine are allowed to cut the roots of the hair, of the beard. So I'm going to come to the head of Philips, the engineer. I will have to know how they made it. After he explained to me that it's lift and cut technology, I would write in my book, this model of Philips is not kosher. What happened if 10 years later a technician from Philips will say, no, what he told you is wrong. We don't even use lift and cut technology. There's no such thing. That engineer was misleading you. Now you're going to come and say, see, the halacha is changing.
Rabbi, I agree with what you're
That's
saying.
not the halacha is changing. We based our knowledge based on the experts in everything, in medicine, in science. Sometimes they give us the wrong information. But remember, that's not relevant to what we got in Mount Sinai. All the details of the 613 commandments that we got in Mount Sinai, the oral Torah, there's not one mistake there. You'll never find a mistake. There's arguments between the Chachamim how to do it.
How to interpret it, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not relevant, the argument, because the Torah already told you in advance that there will be an argument.
And no matter what, it's going to be valid because they're going to come to
100%.
Rabbi, in your example, you're using medicine, you're using machines. These are creations that are new, that yes, the rabbis have to modify. Lice, animals, if God created these things, these are something that the Tanaim should know. They had Ruach HaKodesh. There's even books, words in the Gemara they were able to raise. If God, that's my point though, if God, He created all this, what's the nuance?
Did you also read?
It's not a machine, it's not a machine. I'm sorry.
I can give you 50 examples of animals that existed in the time of the Talmud and they don't exist today, or they changed their nature completely. The Gemara say, Ishtanu Atvaim. Already 2,000 years ago, it's written in the Talmud that nature is constantly changing.
So you believe in
For
evolution,
instance,
you agree?
No, 100%. There's evolution, natural evolution all the time. But the evolution you're talking about is the dumbest thing on earth. The evolution of Darwin, you have to be super, super stupid to even waste a minute on it. Because the followers of Darwin already say that it's nonsense. Okay, so regarding to the claim that we just heard now, the Torah does not allow the Jews to marry any other nation, and it's not because necessarily the Jewish man or the Jewish woman is better than the Gentile. It's not because of racism, it's not because of prejudice, it's only because God wanted to reserve the Jewish nation as one unit, and if they will start marry the whole world, after 3 generations there won't be Jews left in the world. And that will be the end of the Torah and the end of Hashem's plans and all that. So therefore he forbid the Jews to marry non-Jews. Now I want you to know, there are Gentiles who are 1,000,000 times better than Jews. They're righteous Gentiles, they keep the 7 laws of Noah. When they die, they go to heaven. There are many Jews that are very wicked. When they die, they go to hell for hundreds of years because of the way they rebel against God and disobey the Torah. So this Jew is about to marry Christina, that she lives according to the Torah and she obeys the 7 laws. And she's a decent person, she's not a racist, she doesn't hate Jews, she believes in one God, she's not a murderer, she's not a thief. and she's a very nice, gentle woman. She has no argument that she's a million times better than this Itzik, the Israeli Mechalel Shabbat, or whatever it is, a drug dealer, or a thief, or who knows what. So she is a million times better than him, but he's not allowed to marry her. So you see that it's nothing to do with who's better and who's not. Even Job was a prophet of the Gentiles. He was a holy man. There is a book of Job in the Tanakh, and he wasn't Jewish. And if he would come to marry a Jewish woman, which is the worst one, she is not allowed to marry him, even though God agree and everybody agree that he's a million times better than her. So let's understand that. That has nothing to do with who's better and who's not. It's just a restriction. You cannot rebel against my instruction. I do not allow you to mix with other nations because I want to reserve you as one nation. This is about intermarriage. Now about people that wants to have intimacy before the marriage, it's forbidden. Gentiles are allowed. Gentiles don't have to get married according to the Torah.
But there was an opinion about what if a girl lost her virginity before she got married?
We'll address the whole thing.
Yeah.
So Gentiles have no restriction on it. A non-Jew meet a non-Jewish woman, they can get together, they can move in, they can have intimacy, and they can have children. If one day they want to separate, they say nicely goodbye to each other and they move on. And immediately they can find someone else to live with. They don't need marriage and they don't need divorce. They do it because they copy from the Jews. The whole world saw that the Jews have chuppah and they make a wedding with a ring and the whole thing, so everybody copy from the Jews. But the Gentiles don't need it. All they need is to be faithful to each other while they're living together. Once they decided to separate, they don't need. But Jews is a different story. Until the Torah was given, Jews were also allowed, because there was no Judaism. It was only children of Noah. From the time Noah got the 7 laws of Noah from God, this was 4,200 years ago. There was 900 years that all the people in the world had to follow 7 laws. Once we got the Torah, it's written in the Torah, if a person wants to touch a woman, he must make her his wife first. He must buy her, give her something valuable, not necessarily a ring. The custom is to do it with a ring. She can ask for a house, she can ask for a car, she can ask for a building, whatever she wants. She has to name what she wants to get in order for her to marry him. Once they agree on the terms, he marry her and she belongs to him. The word in the Torah is Baal. Baal means husband. What is the purpose of making in a woman a sign if she was with another man before you or not? Obviously use common sense as it's written in the Torah, but even if it wasn't written, you will understand that the reason the woman has a seal in her body is because she's supposed to be with the one. Once she decides to get married, he should be the one. And if one day they decide to get divorced, he gives her a get. The Torah says, "Natan la sefer kritut." The soul gets separated from the minute she receives it. She can go and get remarried. Jews are not allowed to have intimacy unless they get married. In the old days, it was much easier. Why? Because men could have married few women. It was in the world by the Arabs until today. But after the Jews in Europe used to have problems 1,000 years ago, in the time of Rabbeinu Gershom. So he made a takana that no Jewish man will marry more than one woman because they're afraid from the Christians. The Christians were allowed only one woman. They get very angry when they saw the Jews in their countries having more than one wife. So for over 1,000 years, by now it's 1,010 years, Jews in Europe stopped marrying more than one woman, but according to the Torah, it was allowed. Jacob had 4 wives, Abraham had 2, King David had more. So this is about intimacy. Now, you had the third question. Why
So what happened if a girl lost it before marriage?
So if she lost it, it was obviously a sin. However, the good news in the Torah is that God is very reasonable, and he knows that people have desires. And usually people decide their opinion based on their desire. It's not the other way around. First they have a desire and then they try to kosherize it. That's how they try to kosherize it. So yeah, so and we all like that, some more, some less. Very few people stick first to the truth and they don't move from the truth regardless what's in it for me, what will I gain, what will I lose. Unfortunately, this is the way people are. They have desires. So a woman, if she committed a sin with a man that is not her husband, obviously she cannot hide it now. That's it. When the next time when she go to get married, she cannot lie. She will have to admit that she was with another man. Now it's up to the boy if he wants to marry her or not. If he wants, no problem. If he doesn't, she can marry someone else. Now you're asking in the eyes of God how a woman like this is reviewed. The answer is God gave us an option to repent. It's written, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha v'shamata bekolo. Even the biggest criminal, Mechalel Shabbat, a thief, idol worship, whatever the Jew did, if he repents, he asks Hashem to forgive him, he's regretting what he did, he's ashamed of it, and when he pray, he confessed about his sins, and Yom Kippur passed, the sin will be erased, and it's like a brand new baby. The best proof for that is Joshua, the greatest person in the world after Moshe Rabbeinu, after Moses. He took his place. Who did he marry? A non-Jewish woman, which was the biggest prostitute in the world, the fanciest prostitute. She became Jewish, she converted, she stopped doing what she used to do, she became a righteous woman, and who married her? The chief rabbi of the world that took the place of Moses. Why? To teach you that once a person repents, it's a new start. And God is very reasonable, He's willing to be merciful and to forgive the person's sin. So even the worst sins in the Torah, even a murderer, we had Nebuzaradan, the chief of the army of Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian Empire. He murdered 20 million people. 20 million people he murdered, Nebuzaradan. And in the end, he converted to Judaism and became a religious Jew after he killed so many people. Everybody asks, how do you accept such a Hitler to become a Jew? The answer is, En davar haomed bifnei hatshuva. Everyone can repent. No one is better than anyone. Everyone has his own challenges, and people have doubts, and people have desire, and they have weaknesses. That's why the great news is that no matter how many times we fall, we can still get back up. And if we leave the world righteous, then everything bad that we did will be erased. But if
I mean, I have my take on that, which is why I had what I had mentioned in the previous episode was that given that you also agreed that the Talmud and halachot are really subject to human interpretation. These people were not perfect. The Talmud is strewn with a bunch of interpretations like, menstrual blood converting into breast milk, a male hyena metamorphosis into a female hyena, the earth was flat, the sun orbits around it. There's just so many things that
all came from the Greeks. Everything you mentioned.
Why are the Tanaim writing about it? They could have said, look.
No, because the rabbis were not scientists.
Okay,
whatever
but I thought they were.
believed
if they were
in that time, based, for instance, the Greeks.
So all I'm saying is this proves though. This proves that they were open to interpretation.
You're mixing two categories.
And that's why.
No, you're making a critical mistake now. You're mixing two categories.
I'm just letting you know. I let you speak a lot. I get cut off every time I start talking.
Their
Right?
knowledge on secularism has room for error, but their knowledge on the divinity from God doesn't have room for error. That doesn't make.
But that's cherry picking.
That's cherry picking. That goes to my point.
You just get to pick and choose.
Whatever we got.
My big issue is cherry picking, and that just pointed that out actually.
No. Whatever we got.
Okay, as long as he admits that.
Whatever we got which relates to the 613 commandments, this is divine information that we got in Mount Sinai. Otherwise, we wouldn't know how to keep the commandments. It's impossible that we get a written Torah without any instructions how to keep the mitzvot. Now, there were arguments about certain things, certain pieces of information that we got. For that, the Torah says, if there will be arguments between the Chachamim, you follow the majority in quality, not in quantity. We don't count how many rabbis say this. We go for the top three, and we do majority from the top three.
What about there was a medrash, I think it's Bamidbar or Breshit, where they talked about the Anshe Knesset Hagadola finding 3 Sifrei Torot, and this was with Ezra Sofer. They found 3 Sifrei Torot. One of the Sifrei Torah had a different word. I can look up the quote, I have it written down. There's a different word in the Torah. 2 of them had the other word. They went by the Rove. They said these two have that word. We're just going to go by this one. They discarded the third one.
I don't know about what she's talking about, but I'll tell you one thing. I do know that we have the tradition, the Mesorah, that all the Sifrei Torah in the world, no matter where you go, it's the same story, and the same details, the same everything the same. However, Christianity have 200,000 different books, completely different.
I'm saying they're
Islam,
more wrong than us.
Hundreds of different.
They're definitely wrong. They're definitely wrong.
But in Judaism, it was a death penalty to modify the Torah. That's why we were so careful. And every 7 years, there was mitzvah hakel. They all gathered together, and everybody read.
I don't understand.
And if somebody had a mistake, he had to fix by the majority.
That's my point.
These rules are the rules of God.
Even
because people are not perfect, and God say, if you have a mistake, you follow the majority.
Even the
what
Abar
doesn't make sense here?
Even Abar Benel, the Rashi, their Tosfot even talked about how there were points in time in history where we lost parchments, we lost pieces of the Torah. They had to be rewritten. Because
the Jews were scattered all over the world with no communication.
What's the oldest? Let me ask.
According to you, there should have been 5,000 different versions of Torah. One Torah speaks about a whole different story, and a Torah in Persia a whole different story.
No, they weren't.
And the Torah in Russia a completely different story.
They weren't that different. They weren't that different. They had one word or two words missing, but this speaks to the.
But the Torah, the Jews gathered to Israel from all the countries in the world. And what did they do? Bring the same Torah. The same Torah from the beginning to the end is the same Torah. The tradition, the Mesorah, is 100% like the Yemenite Torah, because the Yemenites, they're not on exile too much. They came to Yemen, 2,600 years, they were in one place. Nothing has changed. You go open Sefer Torah Temani, that's exactly the original as it was in Moshe Rabbeinu. In other places, there were some minor changes if you write it like this or that. But we know the Mesorah, we never lost the original version. But the Goyim, ask them, which one of the 200,000 New Testament is the original one? They have no idea.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But my point is, I want to
just
get an agreement that we can agree. Even Ezra Sofer, there's a Medrash Rabbah and Dvarim or Bamidbar about, and I think it's the Abar Benel. I'll show you the quote after this, where he put dots on top.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He wrote dots on top of the doubtful words that he was unsure when he was writing the Torah.
But I know one thing, reality-wise, there are hundreds of thousands of Torahs in the world. All of them are the same, based on what you're claiming.
Today, yes. Today, yes.
But no,
the oldest Torah we have that is complete.
By the time of Ezra, the Jews were in all different places in the world. Not everyone was in one place. So if Ezra fixed how all over the world you have the same Torah, it should have been right there too.
Over time, the rabbinic authorities of the time
But
said,
we
this is the final Torah, and then they spread it, right? And then they got rid of all the other ones.
One Torah that is different than what we have was ever found in history.
It was, not today. Today, after it's easy to say, I'll
show a proof that you have a Torah that is different than the one we have today. We never found one like this.
The oldest current complete Torah was written and dated to 1008. It's called the Leningrad Codex. It's in the Russian National Library. That's the oldest complete version of the Torah. You should all know. The oldest complete version. We don't have anything prior to that. We have pieces from the Dead Sea Scrolls, from the amulets, different parts. Then over time, the rabbinic authorities got rid of the other ones.
And Torah somewhere in the world, anywhere. Any proof that there was a Torah different than the one we have. For 30 years research, I never saw even a claim like that. It's a new claim that I hear for the first time. Find me a place that you come and say, this Torah is different than all the Torahs we have in every city and every country in the world. And then we will discuss it. Yes, I just want to make sure that you both got what I said. You gave an example of who rotates again around who. The earth around the sun or the sun around the earth. This is something the Torah didn't discuss. It's not in a written Torah and it's not in the Talmud. How it entered the Talmud later on? Very simple. The Greeks, which were very smart people, they were scientists. They were investigating nature all the time.
You keep going back to the Greeks. But
wait, let me finish. The Greeks say, who serves who? The servant goes around the king or the king goes around the servant? Meaning, if I'm the servant of the king, I should run around him and serve him, or I should sit with the food and the king should go around me and eat. So the Greeks say the servant has to go around the king. That's common sense. So who serves who? The earth serves the sun or the sun serves the earth? The sun gives heat and light to the earth. So the sun was designed by the creator of the world to serve the earth. Therefore, it's perfectly logical that the sun rotates around
Monotheism
the
was
earth.
based off of the belief of one God, and it was originally geared towards the sun.
Why couldn't God just say?
I'm not talking about
Hey.
now the idol worshippers who worship
Well,
the stars.
Monotheism was Abraham's.
Hold on, you.
No, you mix completely two different things. I'm talking now about the Greeks wanted to know the earth goes around the sun or the sun goes around the earth. Their conclusion was that the sun goes around the earth because the sun was made to serve the earth.
Because it gives life.
And
Today,
what I'm
today we
saying
know.
What I'm saying is the
today,
Tanaim,
today we know it's wrong.
the Tanaim were not divine because
Tanaim-
they didn't know any better. They also thought it was.
Nobody
they
claimed
thought-
that Tanaim is God.
No,
It's
but
big
they
rabbis.
were. We talk. You mentioned yourself. They have Ruach Hakodesh.
Right.
They were able to see.
Do you know what?
How could they know?
What,
Remember,
tell me what does it mean
remember-
Ruach HaKodesh? Can you tell me what does it mean?
They
Ruach
had
HaKodesh?
they were divine providence.
But
They
who-
were able to
but
see.
divine Ruach HaKodesh means that they know everything in the world. They know everything. They know every person.
The
They know
basics.
we-
No,
why we-
Come on.
what
Just
they say.
Nobody
just-
ever claimed the
just-
rabbis are
just
God.
the basics.
You know, listen.
We know the sun doesn't go under the rakiach during the day
If
and then
someone
over
tell
at
you that his
night.
rabbi is equal to God, then he's an idol worshiper.
It's in
nobody
Psachim.
ever claimed such thing. What they say that they were holy people. They live very holy and humble life, and they gave the entire life for the Torah. And if they made a mistake, the Torah said, when there is disagreement, we have to make a verdict. Once the verdict was reached, that's what everyone has to do. But I have news for you. You know, you learn Masechet Shabbat. פרק 19, Rabbi Eliezer de Milah, chapter 19 in Masechet Shabbat. They had an argument if you're allowed to heat up water for the baby in a circumcision that falls on Shabbat. You're allowed to do it on Shabbat for the baby, or you have to prepare it from before Shabbat. So all the Chachamim in Israel say, no, if you didn't prepare it before Shabbat, you cannot circumcise the baby. But Rabbi Eliezer, which was the chief rabbi of his town, he said, no, because it's a part of the circumcision, and circumcision is allowed on Shabbat, you're allowed to prepare everything you need to be able to circumcise. The Gemara say, in a place of Rabbi Eliezer, they prepare everything on Shabbat if they need to. Everywhere else in Israel, they're not allowed. Why? Because the rabbis of that place ruled otherwise. Now you may come, this is a perfect example, here you go. But the Gemara discussed this. Nobody hides it.
No, I
the
understand
Gemara
that.
say, we follow what God told us.
I understand. The Gemara does say, oh, in this situation, we have a machloket.
But this
They
is
even
what
say
God said.
They even say teku sometimes. But my
Yeah,
point is,
exactly.
these quotes that I'm giving you, that the Torah said, that the Gemara says, for example, Rabban Gamliel, the new moon will never be less than 29 and a half days. This isn't something that they had an argument over. It's factually incorrect. In 2008, NASA has a publication where the new moon cycle was 6 months out of the year, 50% of the year, less than 29 and a half days. According to Rabban Gamliel, it would never have been that. He would have been
29
wrong if he was...
The calculation of the Gemara, it's exactly like NASA and the German agency. Exactly, I can show you the original paper.
Of the average.
29.530590. That's what the Gemara says.
By the way, that's the average,
The
but the
difference is
Babylonians were the ones that
1/10,000
had
of a
that.
second.
Nibu Kimani, there was a Babylonian astronomer who
but
had
but
that. The Gemara later got it after
But
the
I
fact.
want to ask you a question.
And then
who
the
was
stars.
able 2,000 years ago to know the exact renewal of the moon?
The Babylonian, you're right, I agree, it's unbelievable. But think about it. People without light pollution, without buildings blocking the view, they stared at the sky every single night. You had candles.
But to
people
know-
stared and
but
they
to
counted
know-
and people
no,
wrote
but
things
to
down.
know
And by the way, this was before.
To know thousands of cycles that it will never be less.
They took it from the Babylonian astronomers, by the way. Nibu Kumani, I think is his name. He was a famous Babylonian astronomer. Numerous sources from different historical sites, essentially.
So what are you saying?
You're saying
that Rabban Gamliel, the holy president of Israel,
Yes.
From a grandson of King David, was a liar and a deceiver. That's what you just said.
No, not a deceiver.
No,
not-
because according
because it means
because,
intention.
no,
I'm saying
because
he was mistaken.
no,
He's a human being.
Robert, you target something. Let's see what the Gemara say. The Gemara say, "Kach mekublani mibet avi abba." This is what we receive from generation to generation, all the way to Mount Sinai. every time the Talmud used this expression, kach mekublani mibe, he didn't say this is what we copy from the Greeks. But in other places, they did say that the Greeks claimed
Exactly,
this.
but there he didn't.
And over here, it says
So if
that
this
this is something that we got from Mount Sinai.
So if he got it
that
from
we
Mount
should
Sinai, how was he
follow.
mistaken?
We should follow a cycle of 29 days and a half, which is 12 hours, and 40 minutes, 2/3 of the hour, and 73 parts of the minute, which comes to 29 days, 43 minutes, and few
It's the
seconds.
average, you're right. It's the
That's
average.
it. That's
It's
what
the
that's
average.
what the Torah told us. Now the scientists claim that there are trillions of stars. It's written in the Talmud in Masechet Brachot, page 32, that Hashem created 30 Chayil and 30 Legion and 30 Aton,
the areas.
and the number comes to 19 digits. Now remember, this was written in a generation there was no telescope, no NASA, no satellite. What normal human being would write that there are trillions of stars when the whole world is counting 6,000 stars? Who would make up such a stupid claim? It's the dumbest claim unless it's divine.
So
it's
as-
either divine or the dumbest claim that
So-
even me and you will not make such a stupid claim.
I agree, it's extraordinary. But if it was divine, it would be perfect. God wouldn't make a mistake.
And it is perfect.
But it's not.
Sure it is.
Current NASA records show that, I think it's 10 with 18 zeros. But the current NASA is 10 with 24 or 23
you
zeros.
and I
It's
know,
1 quintillion
and I
versus
spoke-
1 septillion. And it is extraordinary.
You and I know, and I spoke to a professor in NASA, he contacted me, that every time they came up with a counting, they get a different number. And the reason for that is because all the galaxies are in movement, and they have satellites who take pictures, and they have mega computer who count. And every time he gave a complete different number. So what do you know why? Because
The
there
number's
is
not getting
no
less.
way
The
to
number's
count.
not- it's not getting lower, it's getting more, though.
Physically, there is
made the
no
mistake.
way physically to count all the galaxies and all the trillions of stars that are always in movement. What we have to be impressed of is how did God say to Abraham, I will multiply your children like the stars in the heaven, when everybody thought that there's only 6,000 stars. That's an insult. I have a nation that is only 6,000 people. That's not even a town. God is bragging that he's going to give Abraham so many children like the number of the stars. If you claim that the Torah is not from God, what human being would make a fool out of himself? I will multiply you like the stars. So time ran out. We can stay in touch. You can. I'm sure you have more questions. Questions will never end. There's always going to be questions. Anytime you have questions, you feel free to email me, Mizrachi@gmail.com. You have my book. Please review it carefully without political agenda. Put everything you already know on the side. Give it a fair chance. Read it. If you disagree with certain things, get back to me and we'll take it from there. Thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate it,
Thank you
guys.
so much. Thank you. Have a good. All right.